Hi, Erin. Thanks so much for coming on the show today. It's really good to have you on.
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
So we've got two birth stories to cover today, and you've got one who looks like a relatively fresh baby there.
Yeah, she is 4 months. So, yep, I
Oh.
have a 2-year-old story and a 4-month-old story.
Wow, that's a close age gap there.
It was not super intentional. So, yeah, we're rolling with it. We're here.
Excited to find out more. So let's start off with telling us a bit about who's in your family, if you don't
Yeah,
mind.
so I live with my husband, my two kids. I have a boy, my first, and then I'll have a little girl and two dogs as well. So we are now balanced. We have a boy dog and a girl dog, so we're all even.
One of each on all accounts.
Yeah.
So your conception journey with your eldest, was he planned?
Yes, very much so. I had a pregnancy before him, so I had a miscarriage, which was quite rough. We fell pregnant on the second try, and I was like, "You're so good at this." We went away on our honeymoon. We went on a cruise for the first time on my honeymoon in my first trimester, which I do not recommend to anyone. I was incredibly sick, and who knows if it was more pregnancy or more seasick. Our cruise left from Vancouver, so it was a bit choppy those first few days at sea. But yeah, everything was great. We had a very wonderful, lovely honeymoon, very excited about the future. And the day after we came home from our honeymoon was our first scan, and baby wasn't viable. Baby should have been 11 and a half weeks and was measuring 5.5 weeks. So yeah, that was hard. It was a really, really tough time. Yeah, I think not enough people speak about miscarriage in general. There's a lot more conversation around it now, which is wonderful, but I'm a chatter. I like to talk things through, and I think that really helped me. And I was quite public about what happened, and I posted on my socials, and I had 19 people that I know in my kind of day-to-day life reach out to me to say, me too, this happened to me as well. And I only knew a handful of them that had went through that, so there was well over 10 that I had no idea. And yeah, I think it's not for everyone. That's not how everyone deals with things like that. But I think potentially more people would if the conversation was more if it's a bigger conversation.
Yeah, and I feel like when it comes to miscarriage, we have to get over the devastating fact that that little human that you're imagining in your mind is gone. But then you're kind of told to just continue on and crack on with your life and take this tablet or just be at
Mhm.
home and just rest and you'll get better. But it's your mind, even though your body might heal, your mind
Mm.
doesn't heal at the same
Oh,
rate, does it?
absolutely not. It was really, really hard. And I had an amazing, amazing therapist who was wonderful. And one of the things I kept saying to her was it's only 2 months. I only tried for 2 months. I don't know why I'm struggling so much. And after a few sessions, she kind of reminded me, she was like, you got your coil, was the contraception I was on. She's like, you got the coil out 3 years ago. You've been taking folic acid for 2 years. She said, although you weren't actively trying to get pregnant, you were preparing to get pregnant. And you were ready on all accounts in so many ways. So you're not grieving 2 months of trying that wasn't successful. You're grieving the last couple of years that you've been getting ready in all these other ways. And that was quite a nice moment for me. It made me kind of give myself a bit more grace that actually, yeah, this is a very long time coming. I've always, always wanted to be a mum. So yeah, it was I think a good therapist counts for a lot. But yeah,
Fantastic.
she was wonderful and really helped me. And then we tried for 7 months to fall pregnant with my son, which in the grand scheme of things is not that long, but oh my goodness, it was a lot. It was the longest 7 months of my life. It was really, really, really hard. And just the people's input, because we've been really public about the miscarriage, which I wanted to be, it then invited people to talk about the fact that we were obviously trying, and that puts pressure on, there's another pressure that everyone knows that you're kind of trying to get there, and yeah, quite hard. But we fell pregnant. We basically decided after 6 months we were going to just take a break, kind of sort our head out. My headspace wasn't really getting any better, and we said, right, no more. We were going away for my 30th birthday. We were going to Disneyland Paris for a couple of days on a trip to France. And I was like, I want to go on the roller coasters. I want to drink champagne in front of the castle. That's the vibe we're looking for. And 6 days before we went away, I had a positive pregnancy test. of course, which like wasn't exciting. Like it was really hard. It's just such a mind game to fall pregnant after having a loss. And then within 2 days I was bleeding. So I was like, well, this is here we go again. And I contacted the early pregnancy unit who'd cared for me before, and they couldn't get me in for a scan until the day after we got home from France. And I was like, okay, well, this is just deja vu. Like, we're just going to go through the same thing again. If I'm going to try and enjoy my trip. I bled the entire time I was away. It wasn't very heavy, but it was constant blood, which turned into like brown, like dark blood. And I remember vividly saying to my husband on this trip, there's no way anything's alive in me. Like I was like, there's no way there's a baby in me. Like, how can this be happening and something still be okay? So we got home, had the scan, and our little boy was there, like wriggling away at 8 weeks or something crazy like that. And you could still see them, a little jelly bean moving around. And yeah, we were told that a lot of women have implantation bleeding that doesn't leave their body necessarily. It can just have a pocket next to the sac that the baby grows in. So that bleeding always occurs. Some women, it does come out. Sometimes it's reabsorbed. Sometimes it stays a couple of days. And then, because when I started bleeding, it was not when I worked out what implantation bleeding, it wasn't the right dates for that. But on the scan, the midwife showed us this huge pocket that was as big as the pocket that the baby was in at that point. And said, that's all blood and that might still come out. So you just be aware of that. Why does no one know this already? That you can have these kind of things.
I've never heard of like I've heard of implantation bleeding, but not like a pocket of implantation bleeding that could get stuck in there.
I mean, it's hard when you're looking at the scan. You don't know how big things actually are. Obviously, things are really small, but it looked, there was as much in this pocket as there was where the baby was, which just felt like it seemed like a lot.
And we know as well that, like, when you get your period and like what feels like a lot of blood coming out of you is actually, once it's concentrated with everything else that kind of comes out, it can always look worse than it is. And like, it would have been weird seeing the old blood too, being like, well, this isn't fresh. It's like comforting, or is that not comforting? Like your mind must have been like, what?
Yeah. But early pregnancy is a mind game, I think, for anyone. Like anyone is you're all these thoughts, and then for us to be trying to manage that with what's happened the first time, like I think because I'd had a miscarriage, I didn't trust my body. Like I threw up the morning of the scan where we found out the baby wasn't viable. So my body was like, no, you're pregnant. Don't worry, you're pregnant. And I wasn't. So it was really hard to kind of believe that things were okay.
Were you super nervous the whole rest of that pregnancy? How were you feeling, like mentally, physically? Was he tracking okay? And like, when did you start to feel like safe?
He was tracking fine. I had a lot of early scans. So I had 2 early scans with the early pregnancy unit before like your dating scan. And I had another 2 private scans in between them. And I had maybe 1 or 2 more after between the 12-week and the 20-week scan. And then we did a nice one with a friend at like 30 weeks just to do like the 3D thing. So I had a lot of, my fridge was covered in baby scan photos. He was tracking fine. He tracked 50 centile the whole pregnancy. I was very sick, like really, really sick. The medication wasn't really helping me. I was admitted for fluids at one point, and yeah, it was a lot. It was a lot, and it was really hard because I was so grateful to be where I was every week. I was like, here we are, we're another week further than before, but yeah, that was a lot.
So did they definitely diagnose you with HG? Then I assume being admitted and stuff that,
Yeah, like it wasn't really discussed in those terms. They didn't actually say, but yeah, it was only once, but yeah, I just hadn't kept anything down, and 24 hours, not even water. It was
God.
Yeah. But with this pregnancy, my latest pregnancy, I was not vomiting, but the nausea was insane, and I would take vomiting over the nausea. Now that I've had both with my son, I could be sick and then feel fine for sometimes it was only an hour, sometimes it was the rest of the day. I would feel sick, be sick, and then have relief. There was no relief with the nausea. So
I have heard that. I've heard that like women enjoy the release of the vomiting rather than the constant hungover feeling.
Yeah, I mean, if you'd asked me that in 2023, I'd have said you're crazy. But now, absolutely, I will be sick any day of the week over that nausea. It was
So, what birthing prep were you doing with him? Did you feel like you had a real idea in your head of what you wanted how you wanted your birth to go?
kind of, I just wanted to be informed. That was like, I just wanted to learn. And I found a class that was someone who had previously taught NCT classes, but now had like her own independent business. I really liked the kind of stuff she was putting out on her socials. So I thought this is the gal. It was very much like an NCT happy babies thing, a group of
Yeah.
parents, and it was really good. It covered birth, kind of normal birth when things go wrong, how it's feeding, and just like baby prep, like how to change your nappy and all that kind of stuff. It was great. I really liked it. Like I said, I just wanted to be informed. I just wanted to know, can I have plan A, B, C, D, and like if something went wrong, why we wanted to change direction or why not, like all that kind of thing. I really liked the idea of a water birth, but I kind of even knew at that point not to get hung up on the thought of it. I have my dad and my stepmom. I have two younger brothers, and they were both water births. So there was a lot of chat about that as well, like at home, like, oh, you need to do this. Oh, it's so wonderful. My dad had wore his speedos to the hospital, and as soon as my stepmom got in the water, he tried to get in, and the midwife was like, no, 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 that's not happening. So yeah, my husband did not feel that way, thankfully. But yeah, there was lots of chat about that. It was like a really nice way to do things and stuff. So that was in my head, but yeah, I just wanted to be informed. I wanted to know why I wanted to do things. And my partner, I felt really, really passionate about him being almost more informed than me because he needs to know things better because I might not be in a position where I'm thinking straight or can really get my point across. He needs to know why we both want those things. So yeah, that was all our prep that we did up until that point. Yeah.
So you sound like you knew what you wanted and you had a really clear idea. And it's great that you had that insight for your partner to be that prepared because so many of us don't think that. We just think, oh, we'll do it and we'll relay it to them. And then you never kind of tell them the stuff that you think you want to tell them, or you're kind of cramming it all in the final trimester, being like, so if this happened, you should do this.
Yeah, I mean, I had laminated my birth plan hilariously. And even when I say that, I didn't have I want this, 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 this. It was just kind of a rough idea, but I had laminated it, which we didn't even take down to the birth suite. And the midwife was like, "Oh, we'll get it later." She knew, she knew we didn't need that. But I will say that it was our teacher from the class. She was very passionate about birth partners being so informed as well. She was like, this is for you guys. And where the trust that I'm in, there are classes with the NHS, but they only offer them to birthing parents. They don't offer them to birth partners as well. Yeah, we're just an incredibly underfunded area, which is really frustrating. But yeah, we're fortunate enough that we could afford to pay for private classes, but not everyone can. And it's really hard because those are the people that probably need the support of partners more, or the partners need that education as well. Yeah.
That don't get it.
Very frustrating, but yeah.
So if there's nothing else to mention in your pregnancy, do you want to tell us your first signs of labour with him?
Sure. So I didn't actually go into spontaneous labour with him.
Okay.
I was induced. I had at 37 weeks, I had some reduced movement. It happened before, maybe like 30 odd weeks, kind of much earlier on. And I was sent for a scan because I'd had 2 episodes of reduced movement. And then he was fine on the scan. There was nothing to be seen that was of note. He did start moving on when I got hooked up to the CTG and stuff, but it still wasn't normal. So we went home. I went to bed. I could feel him move, but it just wasn't right. Just didn't feel what I was used to, his routine, his pattern, and I didn't feel great. So I went back to the hospital the next day. At what point they were like, when did this start? I said, really, it started almost 40 hours ago now. Like, it's just not been normal for a while. So their recommendation after 37 weeks, if there's 2 episodes of reduced movement, is to induce. So I'd had pelvic girdle pain as well. So at that point, I was kind of like, yeah, cool. Let's get this baby out of here. Let's go for it. And I had heard about inductions not always being successful, but I was like, nah, I'm done. I was also getting really worried about him. And I think the anxiety that I had definitely played into things. And I thought, even though they're telling me he's fine. I don't feel like he's fine. Spoiler alert, he was totally fine and my body was not ready for labour. But I just didn't feel it. I didn't feel safe just sitting on things. So I was induced with the gel pessaries. So I got that at 8 o'clock on the Saturday night. My husband had a few hours with me and then got sent home. And then I got another one, what, about 2 in the morning or something. I got a little bit of sleep. And then about 6, I woke up in so much pain. The pain was coming in waves. So I had never had a contraction before. So to me, this was contractions. I was in so much pain, so much discomfort, really had to go to the toilet. I texted my husband and I was like, as soon as this hospital's open, you better be here. The show is on the road. Baby is coming. He arrived, and within an hour, I had another check to get the next pessary, which was the third in 24 hours. And they couldn't find my cervix because it was so high up. So I was not in labour at all. Not not even a little bit. And it had been very uncomfortable, the other pessaries being inserted, but they really hadn't kind of said anything about was I dilated or effaced or any of that kind of thing. They just inserted the pessaries and left me be. So for them to say that nothing was happening was very, very disheartening.
Sorry, Erin, just interrupt. What gestation were you at when you started
It was
having the induction process?
37.6. 37
Okay,
weeks and
so
6 days. Yeah, so a little bit early. I wasn't at my due date yet. So knowing what I know now, I just wasn't ready. My body just wasn't ready. But it's hard to say if I would do anything differently. I would not be induced again. But I don't think I would have sat on how much his movements had changed. Like I don't think I would have been comfortable to just carry on that way.
it's not worth risking it either. Like for anyone
Exactly.
listening to this, yeah, if you are feeling reduced movements, just go and get it checked. Like never,
Yeah.
ever, ever. Like you did the right thing. And at that stage, you're so close to your baby being with you. So I can completely understand that hesitation and that kind of need to just have them earthside where you're like, you know what? I don't want to stumble at the final
Mm,
hurdle here. I just want
exactly.
them in my arms.
Exactly. And I think I was trying to listen to my body, which was not ready for birth. But I was trying to listen to the fact that my son, it was like there was something different, there was something wrong. And in my defense, I had lost my mucus plug about 3 days before. So I was like, I'm basically in labor,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
pretty much in labor anyway. No.
Because no one tells you, well, then people do tell you now, but I certainly didn't know this in my first pregnancy that you could lose your mucus plug and then still be pregnant for weeks after.
Exactly. I was like, this is it. This baby's
Yeah.
coming out within the hour.
Yeah, my friends said
Yeah.
to me, they're like, you realize it could still be days, weeks. And I was like, what?
Outrageous. Outrageous.
When they couldn't find the cervix, what then happened?
They said, okay, well, you're not in labour, calm down. And the process then was to just wait 24 hours and start the gel pessaries again. So that was a bit of a blow because I was in a lot of pain. I was really, really uncomfortable. I now know that it was not contractions. I think some people just don't react well to the gel, and it was just a lot of pain. And it was just in my in my pelvic region. Like I wouldn't say exactly where it was. It was just generalized discomfort and pain, which is probably why I felt like I had to go to the toilet. It was just discomfort in that area.
Kind of
Um,
aggravating.
I think so. I think that's all it was. So we spent the day just walking around the hospital. I did 8,000 steps on the ward, like around laps of the hospital. Yeah. So and I had another night in the hospital. Husband went home, came back the next day. So it was about 10 a.m. So this is on the Monday where they went to give me my next gel, and I was a whole half a centimetre dilated, and my cervix was very far forward. So they were like, no gel for you. Things are happening. Like the gels that we did are starting to work. So let's just leave you be and hope that things kick off on their own. We were also told that Labour Suite was very busy. So there potentially wasn't somewhere for me right away anyway. So they were happy to just let me sit and wait. So that was fine. By that evening, our ward had got quite quiet. I think there was only one other person waiting, and they said that we were like almost next on the list.
So you'd done your 8,000 steps. And then when you got back and they checked you again, how were you tracking then?
Yeah, so I was like this half a centimetre dilated, woohoo, and they said, we're not going to do anything now. We're going to leave you be, no more gel. let's get things going. We were told it was very busy on the ward as well. So there was nowhere for me to go if things did progress right now. So I was left to it. I had another night in the hospital, and my husband, they tried to send him home, but we were told that we were next on the list. We had someone at home watching the dogs, and he said, if I go home, I need to send these people home and then maybe phone them at 3 in the morning to get them back. He was like, no, it's like, I'll sit on this couch and I'll stay here. And that's like, as long as you're okay with that, I'm okay with that. The ward was really quiet, so fortunately we did. I hadn't had much sleep, so they gave me some sleeping tablets so I could get a snooze. My husband was not so
Nice.
lucky. So
Oh,
I got a few hours, and then they woke us up at 2 a.m. to say that there was space on Labour Suite and they were going to take me down and break my waters. So we did that. We got downstairs, vibes were high, it was really exciting. They broke my waters and then started me on the drip. I was still only half a centimetre dilated, so they said it was quite difficult to break my waters, but they managed and things were fine. So they gave me the gas and air as they put me on the drip. And it was just, yeah, we had like 10, 15 minutes of bliss. It was so exciting. Like, we were going to meet our baby, and like the midwife left the room. I gave the gas meter to my husband. I was like, have a try of this. Like, it was just fun and silly and giggly and just, yeah, vibes were high is like the way to describe it. And then things took a turn, and my body did not react very well to the drip, which I think is tales all this time. Sometimes it just didn't agree with me. And I had maybe two contractions that would probably cost us like kind of normal ramping up. And then what it felt like was that I had a contraction that did not stop for about 45 minutes. I don't have like a full memory of everything. We'd raised the bed up really high, and I was standing over the bed on top of a puppy pad, like that to catch things. And I just remember looking down and it being full of blood, and I was in such a like I couldn't speak properly, so I couldn't get like my husband's attention or midwife's attention, and I just kept looking down and seeing this and thinking, "Oh my God, what is going on?" And eventually, my husband noticed it was fine. It probably wasn't as much as it kind of what we were saying earlier was more wasn't as much what it felt like, but the midwife at that point started to get a bit concerned, and she was leaving the room to ask if we could turn the drip off or just turn it down. She kept being told no. So the doctors and the rest of the team who are outside the labour suite have a screen of your monitoring, and they see what your heart rate is, what your blood pressure is, what baby's doing, and they just kept telling her that I was fine. She's in the room like, she's not fine. She's not okay. And it was only when my blood pressure got too high that they came in and agreed to turn the drip off. So at that point, I'd still just been on gas and air, and I wasn't coping. They gave me morphine injection. Is that right?
pethidine?
Yes, yeah, that's what it was. So I got that, and then I remember feeling like I was getting a break in between contractions at that point, but I was still taking the gas and air during the contractions. I was on another planet. I was so loopy. I had no idea what was going on. My temperature got really high. There was two fans in the room on me. Yeah, and like I don't have full recollection of this. Like, this is all just kind of things in and out. I think because I was getting so loopy with
Was
the medication I had.
was there ever a discussion of epidural? Like, did you think at any point they
So
say you could have it?
I don't remember the conversation happening at that point. When things had started to get worse, I had asked for the fentanyl because I knew that was self-administering, and that's what I wanted to have a bit of control over things. And it was when things got really bad, they still couldn't find an anaesthetist to come and place the IV for the fentanyl, that they were like, you need something. Had the injection, and that was fine. And then at that point, when things kind of calmed down a little bit and I was off the drip, I couldn't get the fentanyl because I'd had the pethidine. Or again, I can't really remember the reasons at that point. And we said, okay, cool, epidural's fine because I can't. They said we have to go back on the drip, and I said, well, I'm not doing that without something more substantial. So at that point, we went for an epidural, which was glorious, absolutely wonderful. I didn't feel a thing of it going in. Like, it really was a lovely experience. Like, it was totally fine. I'm a veterinary nurse, so I work with like needles and all that kind of stuff. So it's not something I was scared of necessarily, but yeah, it was fine. And when the anaesthetist came back to check on me, one of the times he said, he kind of leaned in and said, "By the way, that's the best epidural I've ever done." Like, good, great. Like, I'm grateful for that, but you shouldn't be so excited. It was a bit odd. He was very nice. He was lovely, but
Did say it was a fantastic experience, so maybe he was like,
and it
"Yeah,
was.
this was 10 out of 10."
I have nailed it. I have absolutely nailed
You'd want to
it.
nail it, mate, because it is your back.
I was like, great. I'm so glad for both of us that this has went so well. Yeah. So after that, it was great. I had a nap. It was lovely. So they put the drip back on, and the midwife kept telling me that my contractions were really regular. I was like, cool. I don't feel a thing. Like it was nice. I had a nice experience from that point on. But what had happened is I had went from like the half a centimeter dilated to 7 centimeters in that like 45 minutes.
So they must
Yep.
have really ramped that up. Do you know if they turned up the hormone drip, or do you think that was just your body doing it naturally?
Oh no, so that was in like the 45 minutes at the start. That's what had happened when the drip was on. So when they turned it off, everything stopped. Yeah. So when they put it back on, just nothing was happening. They put it back on and I think my body was like, no, no, not for us. And what had happened is my son he was head down, but his head wasn't the right way to come out, essentially. So I was getting checks every 2 hours from the doctor. And one of the times they came in and said, look, if he doesn't turn in the next 2 hours, then we'll probably go for C-section, which I'd kind of been thinking of already. I was exhausted. We were at like, I don't know, hour 68 since I'd been induced. Obviously, I wasn't in labour that entire time, but I had been in pain on and off, and I hadn't slept very well, and I was done. And my epidural was very effective, and I couldn't imagine pushing. Like I could not, and I could shuffle around in the bed. Like I could move a little. I couldn't wrap my head around the thought of pushing. I just couldn't see that happening. And I'd said to my husband when it was just the two of us at one point, I was like, I think C-section's the way. I think that's what I want. And I mentioned it to the midwife when she came back, and she was like, no, 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 you need to give it a go. I remember thinking, I don't think I do. I don't think I do need to give it a go. And one of the things that had been on our birth plan was I really did not want an assisted delivery. I just couldn't. I don't know what it was, and obviously plenty of babies are born that way, but it just scared me. It just scared me. And I knew that in an assisted delivery, I still had to do the work. It wasn't just that they pulled the baby out. And I thought, I don't know if I can do that. I don't know if I can balance that in my head, like with the fear. And I said that to the midwife, and she went, no, you need to try it. I remember just thinking, right, well, I'm not going to say anything else again. I'll just be quiet. And fortunately, my son did not turn, and they were like, right, C-section is the way. We have to go for C-section. And I thought, great. Like I was very relieved. And at that check, they said, so through the whole thing, they kept losing my son's heartbeat with the CTG, but they would readjust and it would come back. They would find it again, and they kept offering the clip goes on their head.
Yeah.
And we kept saying, if we have to, sure, but can we try something else first? Can we try moving? And we always got the heart rate, so we never needed it. And in that last check, they again said we really should go for the clip. And our midwife at that point advocated for us, and she said, look, we've got this far, like let's try and move again. And the doctor said, okay, sure. And the doctor left the room, and she couldn't find the heart. She couldn't find them again. So she came back, the doctor came back, and another midwife came back, and they asked me when I'd last felt my son move. And no one told me that I should still feel him move with the epidural. So I didn't know. And I hadn't really felt him move. And I didn't know that I should have alerted someone for not feeling him move.
Like, how active should a baby be in labour, kind of thing?
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe it's something that had been talked about at the classes we'd done, but I'd forgot it. I don't know. But it just had totally went out of my head.
You've been labouring for 68 hours, so it's understandable that you may not have. You'd also had pethidine, like...
Yeah, and things got a bit scary at that point. They said, we don't know what baby's doing. We've not had their heart. We think that we've been picking up your heart rate, not theirs. The room got really heavy. And they said, we have to do a fetal blood sample right now. So I remember it being so ridiculous. They cranked the bed up so high. My husband is 6'1", and when I turned my head, I was eye to eye with him. So I was in the air, and they use like a speculum to get to baby's head, and they take a scalpel baby's head, and they use a syringe to draw the blood, and they take 2 samples, and they have 2 staff members like ready and waiting to grab the sample and run. It's not like one person takes both. Like as soon as there's a sample, someone runs, and then another sample, and someone runs. So it was really scary. So my husband and I were crying because we thought we didn't have a baby anymore. Like it. And now when we talk about this with other medical professionals or other people like in the birthing profession, I don't think it necessarily was that scary. Like, I don't know, but no one told us it was okay. No one was like, guys, it's not, no one brought us back down to earth. We just sat in this really heavy, like dense room where there was lots of people, no one was talking, and we were just waiting on those bird results coming back, which took, I, I don't know, 2 minutes, maybe 3 minutes. He was fine, and we carried on and went for the C-section, but that was terrifying. It was so scary. Really, really bad.
Really scary. It's funny how I feel like the stories where I hear that these kind of situations have happened, but there was, say, a student midwife there talking to the mother or someone there explaining what's happening. That is the difference between someone being uber traumatized by something or accepting of the interventions they're having.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Like that, you're so right. It's just no one was there to hold our hand. In a room full of people where my husband and I are crying, no one kind of did anything. Like hard, really hard. So exactly. Yeah.
Also,
But
like, what I don't kind of understand is if you were going for a C-section anyway, and they were slightly worried about baby, why waste time doing that? Why not just rush to go through the C-section anyway? Why not just accelerate the C-section?
well, they told us that they only had one theatre open, and if these blood results were bad, there was a C-section currently happening in that theatre. So they were like, do we need to open our theatre in the next 25 seconds, or can we wait till that one's done? Was
Gotcha.
what we were told. Yeah. So things were fine. He was okay. So we were able to wait until that one was done. So within, I think it was like half an hour, we were in theatre, and my C-section was wonderful. I had a really, really positive experience. It was so calm. I don't know if it felt so calm because labour suite didn't feel calm. Like I know lots of people talking about how calm an elective section was. I remember thinking, how much calmer could it be? Like, but then obviously the situation that ours was that we knew baby was fine, so it wasn't an emergency. Like someone was unwell. Like it was just it had become an emergency section because he needed out and the induction had failed. So yes, we got in. It was really lovely. They asked if we wanted music on, and I was like, I don't care. If you want music on, put it on. Just get this baby out of me. I really don't care. And they put on like a feel good Friday playlist or something, whatever. And we didn't know what we were having. It was a surprise. And I'd said, I don't want any doctors to tell us, I want my husband to tell us. He lifted my son up, and I could see very much that he was a boy. No one needs to say anything. And then they all started laughing and said, "Oh, he's peeing in you." I was like, "Is that okay?" There's layers of my body open. I don't need urine there.
I'll take your laughter as ease.
And I was like, "Sure, this is great." And then my husband, who's a huge Elton John fan, he said, "Oh my God, Erin, can you hear the song?" And it was your song. And as we clipped, this sounds made up. I know your listeners will be rolling their eyes, but the line that I heard the song was, "How wonderful life is when you're in the womb." So I can't listen to that song without bawling my eyes out now.
That was on my birth playlist as well.
It was, yeah, it was perfect. It was so lovely. So yeah, we had a really lovely experience. From what I learned from my classes was if you're going for a C-section, you can ask for all your monitoring equipment to be on your back or not on your chest so that you can still get skin to skin, which we did. But just the way, like how high up the drapes are and how you're lying on the table, I felt like he was going to roll over my face, which obviously was not happening, but that was he was on my neck. And it was great. But then I was like, I said to my husband, I was like, Connor, can you just
Yes.
yeah.
This is like your baby's head.
I was like, yeah, this is not the moment I was expecting, not the grand moment of holding my baby for the first time. But
Yeah.
I remember my husband took him, and it was like I could use my hand when I was taking photos of my husband and him together. It was so lovely. One of the things that I didn't prepare for was that I started shaking before he was born, like before the cesarean actually happened. When I was lying in the theatre, I was shaking. And my husband had, I got taken into theatre first while my husband got scrubs on. And then when he followed in, by the time he got into the room, I was lying there like violently shaking. And he was like, "Are you okay?" And I was like, "Yeah, I'm fine." And he was like, "You can,"
You don't look fine, hon.
he was almost whispering. He was like, "You can tell me, like, you can tell me." And I was like, "I'm so fine."
You good?
But yeah, after that it was all fine. We went back to the wards. My oxygen was a little bit low, and I remember my husband was so tired, so he stayed with us for, I don't know, maybe an hour, and then went home. My son was born at 7 o'clock at night, so 71 hours from induction
Oh
till he was born.
God, that's
Yeah.
intense.
So my husband gets sent home, and the last maybe 10 minutes that he was at my bedside, I was watching the midwife look at the numbers above my head, like look at the screen, and she wasn't saying anything, but she was like, "Are you heading home now?" to my husband, and he left. And as soon as he left, she came over and she was like, "I'm going to put some oxygen on you. I don't love the numbers, but I didn't want to freak your husband out." I remember thinking that's so. Obviously, I wasn't that unwell that she could wait a couple of minutes, and she just let him leave with me and my son being happy before she gave me. So, and I was on oxygen for maybe 2 hours, and I was fine. It wasn't anything too serious. And then the only thing after was that my blood pressure didn't really come down at all. Every time someone checked it, they would go, "That's high." And then they would take it a few more times until it got to like the high end of normal. And they go, "Oh, okay, you're fine." So that happened for the 2 days I was in hospital till I went home. And then when the midwife came out to see me the first day, my blood pressure was high and she sent me back to triage. And we had 3 hours in triage. Again, they just sat me on a blood pressure monitor until it came down and then sent me home. And then the same thing happened the next day. I stayed in for 6 hours that day, and they did give me medication, which brought down, and they sent me home. And then the third day, when the midwife was coming out, and they came out every day because I'd been back up to triage. They didn't space out the days they were coming back the following day. And when the midwife was on her way, I said to my husband, I was like, "Take the dogs out the house. I don't want anyone in the house. Like, I am calm. I am fine." And when she came in, I was like, "I'm not going to speak to you. Just put the blood pressure monitor on me right now." There's no chat. I am zen. I am calm. And my blood pressure was something crazy. It was like 180 over 120. And she was like, "Phone your husband now, get him back. You're going to the hospital." Whereas the 2 days before, they had been like, "Get a bag, sort yourself out, and go back
Yeah.
up." She was like, "You're going to the hospital right now. Go." And at that point, I think, like, your hormones are crazy. We've not slept very much. And my husband, he was over it more than I was. He was like, "This is crazy. Our birth was crazy. No one's looking after our blood pressure." And from his perspective, he was like, "Every time someone's taken your blood pressure, it's been high. Yes, they've got it low enough, but it's always been high. Why is no one made these connections?"
Actioning this.
And bless the doctor in triage, she was wonderful. She came in to see us. Well, when we get checked in, the midwife said, "The doctor you've seen the last 2 days is who's on again today." And we had not seen a doctor in triage. We had only seen midwives. The doctor had read our notes and told the midwife to give us medication. We hadn't actually been seen, despite our notes saying we had been seen. So we got a different doctor, and when she came in, she was wonderful. She basically gave us a bit of like a birth debrief in the cubicle in triage because emotions were high. Like my husband and myself, my husband was over it. He was just really, really angry at first kind of going the way it was, the panic stations that happened just before the C-section, and just yeah, we felt like we'd been really prepared and really educated, and it just I think in those early days with the sleep deprivation, the hormones, nothing was making a lot of sense. But yeah, she was wonderful. She put me on medication, which worked, which I was on for 6 weeks, and we got a birth debrief as well, like a proper one we asked, which we went to, and I'm glad we did. But the notes on that said when the fetal blood sample happened before the C-section, the note said struggling to track baby or whatever, offered mum clip, like the clip for the head, or fetal blood sample, and mum opted for fetal blood sample. Husband and I just sat there like, that is not what happened. If that had happened, we would have said the clip. Absolutely, we very much knew what that was. It had been discussed for hours at that point. Like we would have said, yeah, put that on. We obviously knew that was a continuous monitoring as well. That would have just stayed on until we went to the C-section. So yeah, quite a few iffy things in our notes, which was really disappointing because the staff that we, for the most part, interacted with were wonderful. Like they were great, but yeah, we felt a little bit failed kind of on paper. It felt like they were just trying to get through things, and we were just on a conveyor belt, and we were just being shuffled through things.
And with your blood pressure, did they ever diagnose that as like, I've heard of women getting, oh, what's it called?
It wasn't that because there was no protein in my urine. So what they said, what the doctor we saw the third day, she said that every woman who gives birth, their blood pressure naturally peaks at about between day 5 and day 8 after birth. So what had happened is my blood pressure hadn't really got to normal. And then when it peaked and it was dangerous high. So that's kind of what happened with me. So everyone's blood pressure should go up like within a week after having a baby. But because no one had really flagged that mine was high-ish, when it went high, it really went high. So
Once all of that was sorted then, mentally and like physically, what was your recovery like? And like, obviously it sounds like you felt quite failed. Did you speak to anyone about the birth after it, like postpartum?
so I was still speaking to my therapist from that I'd had from the miscarriage, which was wonderful because she
That's
really helped
amazing.
me all the way through pregnancy. And we were doing sessions every 2 weeks. So I'd spoken to her the week before the induction. No, the week of the induction. And then I had a few days in hospital. So by the time that 2 weeks came around, she answered the call and I had, like I am just now, had my baby on in a carrier, which was lovely and very exciting. But and then I had someone on hand who knew me really well, who knew my story, who knew my fears and everything. So it was good. It was helpful. And I think after the fact, although we'd felt failed, I did understand why all the things that happened. I think we could have been cared for emotionally better, but all the interventions, I understand why they happened. So that was easy to come to terms with why what happened. I just wish more people had looked after us, not just clinically. Like people were saying, this is why this is happening, or just don't rely on our notes would also been fine. Like that was probably harder to take. I was like, what? Yeah.
Makes you wonder that is like, I understand that maybe in the time, because they're obviously having to write these notes as the birth's happening, right? Or directly after. And maybe you've just got like overworked midwives and everyone's trying to scribble down what happened. And they're like, oh, was this at 2 o'clock or 3 o'clock? Or did we say that? Because I'm not sure.
Yeah, well, I feel like I don't know why our note said that they offered us things when they just didn't offer us. Like it just wasn't. And was it that they were worried? They were genuinely so worried about baby that they didn't feel there was time for a discussion, which also is like that's kind of fine. Like
Yeah.
that's why you trust your doctors, right? That's why you trust your
Correct.
midwives. They should be making the right decisions for you. And in an emergency situation, you should be trusting that they are going to do the right thing. And I don't think they did the wrong thing by saying we need the fetal blood sample done now. I don't think that was wrong. But why write in the notes that they offered us different things? That doesn't make sense to me. That's frustrating. And then when they said that one of my notes said that we'd seen a doctor in the triage, obviously things were just so busy. But again, like there's something in the debrief, the consultant that did the debrief with us, she was very, very angry about the the notes around triage. She didn't seem that fussed about us saying that we didn't get offered the two things before the C-section, but she was very angry because I think technically that means that we were dispensed medication by a doctor who didn't see me. So
Mhm.
they weren't happy with that.
Not to mention that, like, if there was something more sinister going on and you were at a real risk of, it being a lot worse. Yeah, exactly. Saying a doctor's seen you when they haven't, then makes that hospital liable, that doctor's liable. Yeah, scary,
Mhm.
scary. How was your recovery with your C-section?
Great, so fine. I had heard like I think many do lots of scary things, and I felt great. And I think I was about 3, maybe 4 weeks. Must have been 4 weeks. My husband was back at work, and I took both dogs and baby out on a walk for the first time. Baby in the carrier, and both dogs on a walk. And I remember coming back thinking, "I've done it. This is it. This is everything I was waiting for. To be able to take my baby and my dogs out together." And yeah, I felt fine. I was driving um for the 6 week mark because I'd heard from someone that it's due to your insurance necessarily your recovery. And if you and your doctors feel like you are well enough, and as long as your insurance clears it, you can drive. So yeah, I felt very lucky and very, yeah, very lucky about my recovery from section. It felt.
That's amazing. I've had a C-section as well, and my recovery was really good. And I think I mean, you obviously hear a mixed bag, don't you? Like with any kind of thing that happens at birth, everyone's experience is really different. But it's nice when you can be so worried about something. It's nice when it just goes to plan.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, it's been wonderful to have you on, Erin, and hear your story. But I'd like to finish each episode on one question, and that question is, if you could offer any piece of wisdom or piece of advice to a woman listening to this who's about to have a baby, maybe they're a bit nervous about things not going to plan, what would you say to them?
Just to be informed. Like, I think, like, it's a bit of a cliche, but knowledge is power. And like I've been saying, after the fact, I knew why all the interventions happened. And I think I knew at the time as well, like I knew that things were making sense when I had a clear head. I was like, yep, we need to do this and that's fine. Even when I was getting the pethidine, I was like, yep, do it. If that's the only pain relief I can get, I'll take it. I know that it's not bad. Just I know that's what's right in this moment. So yeah, I knew why what happened because I was informed. And lots of different things happened. Like I wanted this but didn't get it. I wanted that and that didn't happen. But I knew about all of those things. And that's why I think I could make sense of it in my head. So yeah, be informed. Soak it all in.
It can make such a difference. And you've got another beautiful baby on you, which we'll cover next time. We'll have to get you back on.
Yeah.
And is it, I hope, we won't, no spoilers, but is it a very different story?
It is a very different story, and I'm very happy with how this one went. It was wonderful.
Beautiful. I can't wait to hear it. Thanks so much, Erin. It's been a pleasure.
Thanks. Bye.